The Seattle rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office on the 34th floor of the Columbia Center building, each droplet catching the gray October light like tiny diamonds. I was 41 years old, CEO of Technova Solutions, worth $12.8 million according to my latest financial statement. My fingers traced the rim of my Starbucks Pike Place roast, my third cup of the morning, as I reviewed quarterly reports showing our 340% growth over the past 18 months. My name is Sarah Michelle Chen Rodriguez, and just 5 years ago, I was a broken housewife in Bellevue, Washington, surviving on my husband's $95,000 annual Boeing engineering salary, while he told me daily that I was too stupid to even balance a checkbook. The knock on my mahogany office door came at exactly 10:47 a.m. My assistant Jennifer poked her head in, her usually confident demeanor replaced by something I'd never seen before: pity. "Sarah, there's someone here to see you. He says he's your husband." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Michael. I hadn't seen him since signing the divorce papers 14 months ago at the King County Courthouse on 3rd Avenue. What could he possibly want? Send him in. The man who walked through my door was not the arrogant 43-year-old engineer who had controlled every aspect of my life for 12 years. This Michael looked desperate. His usually pristine Brooks brother's shirt was wrinkled, his graying hair unkempt, and those ice-blue eyes that once held such contempt now darted around my office like a cornered animal. "Hello, Sarah." His voice cracked on my name. I leaned back in my Herman Miller chair, studying him like I would any other business proposition. "Michael, what brings you to my office? And please, make it quick. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. He shifted, his weight from foot to foot, a gesture I remembered from our early dating days when he was nervous. But this wasn't youthful anxiety. This was desperation. Sarah, I need your help." The words hung in the air between us like a confession. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I set my coffee down with deliberate precision, the clink of ceramic against glass echoing in the silence. "Help? That's interesting. If I recall correctly, your exact words during our last fight were, 'You'll be nothing without me, Sarah. Absolutely nothing. You can't even manage to keep the house clean, let alone survive in the real world.'" I paused, savoring the moment. "Tell me, Michael, what exactly do you need help with?" His shoulders sagged as if the weight of his pride was finally too much to bear. "I lost my job. Boeing laid off 15,000 people last month, and I can't find anything else. I've been looking for 8 months. My unemployment runs out next week. The mortgage on the Issaquah house is 3 months behind, and He took a shuddering breath. "I was hoping you might have a position available at your company." The irony was so thick I could taste it, metallic and bitter like the Seattle morning air. The man who had systematically destroyed my confidence for over a decade, who had convinced me I was worthless, was now standing in my office begging for a job. But as I looked at his desperate face, I realized this moment, this sweet, vindicating moment I had fantasized about during the darkest nights of our marriage, was only the beginning of something much bigger, something that would expose just how deep his betrayal had truly run. I let the silence stretch between us, watching Michael squirm in the leather chair across from my desk. Outside, the Space Needle stood proud against the cloudy skyline, a symbol of innovation and resilience. Everything I had become, everything he said I never could be. "You want a job?" I repeated slowly, as if testing how the words felt. "From me, the woman who was too stupid to balance a checkbook." His face flushed red. "Sarah, I know I said some things." "Some things?" I stood abruptly, my Louboutin heels clicking against the hardwood floor as I walked to the window. "Michael, let me refresh your memory about some of those things." The memories flooded back with crystal clarity. It was March 15th, 2019, in our kitchen on Maple Valley Highway. I had just returned from my community college business class, the one I attended in secret, hiding the $2,400 tuition from our joint Wells Fargo checking account by selling my grandmother's pearl necklace. "Sarah, why are you wasting time and money on these ridiculous classes?" he had sneered, tossing my accounting textbook into the trash. "You barely graduated high school. You think some rinky-dink community college is going to magically make you smart? I had retrieved my book from the garbage, pages stained with coffee grounds, and continued studying in our basement laundry room after he went to sleep. I remember everything, Michael, I said, not turning from the window. Every insult. Every time you corrected my math. Every time you told our friends I was just a housewife with that dismissive little laugh. I was wrong, he said quietly. God, Sarah, look at what you've built. This company. This office. I was so wrong about you. I turned back to face him, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the 28-year-old man I had fallen in love with at the University of Washington. The one who had brought me tulips from Pike Place Market and promised we'd conquer the world together. But that man had died somewhere between year 3 and year 8 of our marriage, suffocated by his own insecurity and need for control. Tell me about Boeing, I said, settling back into my chair. 15,000 layoffs is significant. What exactly happened? His hands twisted in his lap. Budget cuts. The 737 MAX issues cost us billions, and then the supply chain problems. They eliminated entire departments. 23 years with the company, and I got a 15-minute meeting with HR and a box for my desk. I nodded thoughtfully. Boeing's troubles had been front-page news in the Seattle Times for months, but something in his body language triggered my business instincts, the same ones that had helped me identify the pain points in the market that made Technova successful. What about your savings? I asked casually. You always managed our finances so carefully, said I couldn't be trusted with more than the grocery money. A shadow crossed his face. There were some unexpected expenses, such as the silence stretched so long I wondered if he would answer. Finally, he whispered, legal fees. Legal fees for what? Another pause. Then, barely audible. The divorce wasn't the only legal issue I've had recently. My blood ran cold. During our divorce proceedings, Michael had painted himself as the stable, responsible spouse. He had tried to claim spousal support, arguing that my little hobby business would never amount to anything, while his steady Boeing salary made him the more reliable party. Michael. My voice dropped to the tone I used in hostile takeover negotiations. What kind of legal fees? He looked up at me then, and I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Not just desperation, guilt. Deep, soul-crushing guilt. Sarah, I need you to understand that I never meant for things to go so far. The intercom buzzed, startling us both. Jennifer's voice filled the room. Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a Detective Morrison from Seattle PD here. He says it's urgent and relates to your ex-husband. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, shattering against the floor in an explosion of ceramic and dark liquid. Michael's face went white as paper. Send him in, I managed to say, my eyes never leaving Michael's face. Because suddenly, I realized that my ex-husband begging for a job wasn't the shocking part of this story. It was only the prologue to something much more sinister. Detective James Morrison was a tall, weathered man in his mid-50s with the kind of steady gaze that had probably extracted confessions from hardened criminals across King County. His dark blue Seattle PD jacket dripped from the rain as he entered my office, his eyes immediately fixing on Michael with unmistakable recognition. Mr. Rodriguez, Detective Morrison nodded. We meet again. Michael's face drained of all color. Detective, I can explain. Explain what? I interjected, standing behind my desk like it was a shield. Detective Morrison, what exactly is going on here? The detective pulled out a worn leather notebook, flipping through several pages. Mrs. Chen, I'm investigating a case of corporate espionage and embezzlement. Your ex-husband's name has come up multiple times in our investigation. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Corporate espionage? Maybe we should all sit down, Detective Morrison suggested, settling his considerable frame into the chair next to Michael. Mrs. Chen, what I'm about to tell you might come as a shock. I remained standing, my hands gripping the edge of my desk. I'm listening. 3 months ago, North Point Industries filed a complaint with the FBI's Economic Espionage Unit. Someone had been selling their proprietary software designs to Chinese manufacturers. The breach cost them approximately $8.7 million in lost contracts and development costs. My mind raced. North Point Industries was one of my company's biggest competitors in the tech solutions space. We'd been bidding against them for contracts for the past 2 years. What does this have to do with Michael? He worked for Boeing, not North Point. Detective Morrison's expression grew grim. Mr. Rodriguez was moonlighting as a consultant for North Point. He had access to their secure servers through a backdoor system administrator account. We have evidence that he downloaded over 2,000 confidential files between January and May of this year. I sank into my chair, the implications hitting me like a physical blow. You're saying Michael was stealing corporate secrets? Not just stealing them, the detective continued, consulting his notes, selling them to a shell company called Pacific Rim Technologies, registered in Delaware but operating out of Shenzhen, China. The payments totaling $247,000 were deposited into an account at Union Bank under the name M.A. Rodriguez Holdings. $247,000. No wonder Michael hadn't seemed concerned about spousal support during our divorce. He'd had a secret income stream the entire time. But then another piece of the puzzle clicked into place, and my blood turned to ice. Detective, I said slowly, when exactly did these illegal downloads occur? Between January 15th and May 23rd of this year, the dates meant everything. Our divorce had been finalized on January 10th. Michael had waited exactly 5 days after our divorce was final to begin his criminal activities. And North Point Industries, they were bidding on the same contracts as my company during that time period. Detective Morrison nodded gravely. The Morrison Municipal Technology Contract, the Seattle School District Security System Upgrade, the Port of Seattle Logistics Software? Yes, ma'am. My hands began to shake as the full scope of Michael's betrayal became clear. He knew my business plans. During our marriage, I shared everything with him. My strategies, my client targets, my innovations. Sarah, Michael finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I can explain. I whirled on him, fury coursing through my veins like molten steel. You sabotaged my company. You knew exactly which contracts I was pursuing, and you sold information to help my competitors undercut my bids. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Wasn't supposed to happen like what? I stood again, pacing behind my desk like a caged panther. You systematically undermined my business while pretending to be supportive. How many deals did I lose because you gave North Point inside information about my proposals? Detective Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Chen, there's more. The investigation revealed that Mr. Rodriguez wasn't working alone. The room fell silent except for the rain against the windows and Michael's labored breathing. What do you mean, not alone? We have evidence of communication between Mr. Rodriguez and someone inside your company. Someone with access to your internal systems and client information. My world tilted again. A mole inside Technova. Someone I trusted, someone I had welcomed into my professional family, had been feeding information to Michael. Who? The word came out as barely a whisper. Detective Morrison consulted his notes again. The emails were encrypted, but our cybercrimes unit traced them to an IP address registered to one of your employees, someone named Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer, my assistant. The woman I had trusted with everything, my calendar, my client files, my most sensitive business information. The woman who had been with me since the early days when Technova was just 3 people in a rented office in Georgetown. The woman who, just 20 minutes ago, had let Michael into my office and looked at me with what I had interpreted as pity. But it hadn't been pity in her eyes. It had been guilt. Detective, I said, reaching for my phone with steady hands despite the chaos in my heart. I think you need to speak with Ms. Walsh immediately, and I believe Michael here has quite a bit more explaining to do. As I dialed Jennifer's extension, I realized that my husband begging for a job had been just the opening move in a much larger game, a game where I was apparently the only player who didn't know the rules. Within 30 minutes, my corner office had transformed into an impromptu interrogation room. Detective Morrison had called for backup, and Officer Lisa Chen, no relation, despite the shared surname, stood by the door while Jennifer sat in the chair previously occupied by Michael, her hands cuffed behind her back. The woman I had trusted for 3 years looked nothing like the confident, efficient assistant who had managed my professional life. Her auburn hair hung limply around her face, and her green eyes I had seen every working day for 36 months, darted between Michael and me like a trapped animal. "Jennifer," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "Detective Morrison tells me you've been sharing confidential company information with my ex-husband. I'd like to hear your side of the story." She lifted her chin with a flash of her old defiance. "You want to know my side? Sarah, you have no idea what it's been like watching you succeed while the rest of us struggle." "The rest of us?" I moved around my desk, standing directly in front of her. "Jennifer, your salary is $78,000 a year, plus full benefits. You have stock options in the company. When Technova goes public, you'll be a millionaire." "If we go public," she sneered. "But Michael told me how unstable your finances really are, how you're leveraged to the hilt and one bad quarter away from bankruptcy." I glanced at Michael, who couldn't meet my eyes. "Is that what he told you?" "He showed me documents, Sarah. Financial statements proving that Technova is built on quicksand. He said he was trying to protect me, protect all of your employees by making sure there were backup plans when your company inevitably failed. The manipulation was so elegant, so perfectly crafted, that I almost admired Michael's strategy. He had identified Jennifer's loyalty to me and twisted it into a weapon against my own company." "Jennifer," Detective Morrison interjected, "we've reviewed the financial documents Mr. Rodriguez provided to you. They were forgeries. Technova's actual financial position is extremely strong." The color drained from Jennifer's face. "What?" I walked to my safe, withdrawing the authentic financial statements my CFO had prepared for next week's board meeting. "Our actual cash position is $4.3 million. Our quarterly revenue is up 127% year over year. We have signed contracts worth $18.7 million over the next 18 months. That's not possible," Jennifer whispered. "Michael showed me bank statements, tax documents." "All forged," Detective Morrison confirmed. "Mr. Rodriguez used his Boeing access to sophisticated document creation software to produce convincing fakes." But I was studying Michael's face and something still didn't add up. "Why?" I asked him directly. "Why go to all this trouble? If you needed money, you could have just asked for higher alimony. Why destroy my business?" For the first time since entering my office, Michael met my eyes directly. What I saw there chilled me more than his desperation or even his guilt. I saw hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. "Because," he said quietly, "I couldn't stand watching you succeed. Every article in the Seattle Times about your company, every award you won every time someone mentioned your name at a party, it was like a knife in my chest." The truth hit me like a physical blow. This was never about money. "No," he continued, his voice gaining strength as he finally told the truth. "This was about proving I was right, that you really would be nothing without me, that your success was a fluke, a mistake that needed to be corrected." Jennifer gasped. "Michael, you said you were protecting the company." "I was protecting the natural order," Michael snapped. "Sarah was supposed to be the weak one. I was supposed to be the successful one. That's how it was supposed to work." Detective Morrison was taking notes rapidly. "Mr. Rodriguez, are you confessing to corporate espionage with the intent to destroy a business out of personal animosity?" "I'm confessing to trying to restore balance to the universe," Michael replied, and for the first time, I wondered if his hatred had actually driven him to a kind of madness. But then Officer Chen's radio crackled to life and everything changed again. "Detective Morrison, we need you back at the precinct immediately. The Rodriguez case just got bigger. We found evidence of a connection to a major money laundering operation through Boeing contractor accounts. This goes way deeper than corporate espionage." The room fell silent. Jennifer stared at Michael in horror. "Money laundering? Michael, what have you gotten us into?" But Michael was already rising from his chair, his expression shifting to something I had never seen before. Cold calculation mixed with genuine fear. "Detective," he said formally, "I'd like to request a lawyer." As they led both Michael and Jennifer from my office in handcuffs, I realized that my ex-husband's visit had uncovered something far more serious than a desperate man begging for a job. had accidentally stumbled into the middle of a federal criminal investigation, and somehow, I suspected, the worst revelations were still to come. Resolution, justice, and triumph. 6 months later, I stood in the federal courthouse in downtown Seattle, watching as Judge Patricia Nakamura read Michael's sentence aloud. The courtroom was packed with reporters from the Seattle Times, TechCrunch, and even the Wall Street Journal, all covering what had become known as the Technova conspiracy. Michael Anthony Rodriguez, Judge Nakamura's voice echoed through the chamber. You have been found guilty on 17 counts of corporate espionage, 12 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of money laundering, and conspiracy to commit economic terrorism. I hereby sentence you to 12 years in federal prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised probation and restitution of $3.4 million to affected parties. Michael, now 44 and looking every day of it, stood beside his court-appointed attorney in an orange King County correctional jumpsuit. The arrogant man who had once controlled every aspect of my life looked small and broken as the bailiff led him away. The full investigation had revealed a conspiracy that stretched far beyond what anyone had initially imagined. Michael hadn't just been selling secrets to Chinese manufacturers. He'd been part of a network of Boeing employees and contractors who had been systematically stealing defense-related technology for over 3 years. The FBI's Economic Crimes Unit estimated the total damage at over $47 million. Jennifer received a lighter sentence, 18 months in federal prison and 3 years probation, after cooperating with investigators and revealing the full extent of Michael's manipulation. During her testimony, she broke down crying, explaining how Michael had convinced her that I was secretly planning to sell the company and leave all my employees jobless. I thought I was protecting everyone, she had sobbed on the witness stand. He showed me fake documents proving Sarah was in debt, that she was planning to declare bankruptcy and disappear with whatever money she could get. I believed him because I wanted to believe someone was looking out for us. The irony wasn't lost on me. In his desperate attempt to prove I would be nothing without him, Michael had actually provided the catalyst for Technova's greatest expansion. The media attention from the case had brought us national recognition. The story of a woman whose abusive ex-husband had tried to destroy her company out of spite resonated with business leaders and entrepreneurs across the country. My TED Talk, Building Success from Betrayal, had been viewed over 2.8 million times. More importantly, the contracts I had lost due to Michael's sabotage were reopened for bidding once the government investigation revealed the corruption. Technova won 7 major contracts worth a combined $31.2 million, including the Morrison Municipal Technology project that had started this whole nightmare. 6 weeks after Michael's sentencing, I stood on the roof deck of my new penthouse in Belltown, looking out over Elliott Bay as the sun set behind the Olympic Mountains. My company now employed 127 people across 3 offices in Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco. Our pre-IPO valuation was $78 million. My phone buzzed with a text from my new assistant, Marcus Rivera, a brilliant 26-year-old MBA from the University of Washington. The Forbes interview is scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m. They want to discuss your inclusion on the 40 under 40 list. I smiled, sipping a glass of Washington State Riesling. At 42, I had technically aged out of most young entrepreneur lists, but Forbes had made an exception for what they called my remarkable transformation, from victim to victor. The doorbell chimed, and I walked downstairs to find a delivery from Pike Place Market, a massive bouquet of tulips with a card that read, "From your biggest fan and proudest friend, Mom." My mother, who had watched me endure 12 years of psychological abuse, had become my company's biggest cheerleader. She attended every board meeting as our community relations advisor, and had been instrumental in helping me heal from the trauma of my marriage. As I arranged the tulips in a crystal vase, a gift to myself from Tiffany & Co. when Technova hit $10 million in annual revenue, I thought about the moment that had changed everything. If Michael hadn't walked into my office that rainy October morning, desperate and defeated, I might never have learned about his betrayal. His own pride and desperation had led him to the very place where his crimes would be exposed. He had been so convinced that I would crumble under pressure, that I would break down and beg him to come back, that he had walked straight into the trap of his own making. The man who had spent 12 years telling me I was nothing without him had ultimately proven the opposite. I was everything because I had learned to live without him. Standing in my penthouse that evening, surrounded by the tangible evidence of dreams that Michael had once mocked, I realized something profound. The greatest revenge against someone who tries to diminish you isn't hatred or even justice. It's success built on your own terms. Today, Technova Solutions employs over 200 people who go home every night knowing their talents are valued and their contributions matter. We've revolutionized municipal technology systems across 12 states, and our company culture is built on a simple principle. Everyone has the potential for greatness when they're given the support and respect they deserve. To everyone watching, this who has ever been told you're not smart enough, not capable enough, or nothing without someone else, I want you to know that person is wrong. Not just wrong, but catastrophically, completely, utterly wrong. Your potential isn't defined by someone else's limitations. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's insecurities. Your future isn't constrained by someone else's fears. Build something beautiful. Create something meaningful. Prove to yourself, not to them, but to yourself, what you're truly capable of achieving. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more real-life tales of people who transformed their pain into power, their setbacks into comebacks, and their darkest moments into their greatest triumphs. Because sometimes the people who try to tear us down end up building the foundation for our greatest victories. And that, my friends, is the most beautiful irony of all. Subscribe for more inspiring true stories of triumph over adversity